Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another video, and today we're taking a look at Final Fantasy XIV on the PlayStation 5. For those of you that are not aware, this week Square Enix released Content Patch 5.5, which includes new main scenario quests, the final portion of the Sorrow of Warlit questline, and a new Nier raid. This patch also came with an open beta client that takes advantage of PlayStation 5 hardware, and Square Enix was kind enough to send me some game time so that I could check all of this stuff out. And I hear some of you guys say, but Rurikhan, I was already playing Final Fantasy XIV on my PlayStation 5. I know, me too. I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV pretty much since I've had the PlayStation 5. It's one of the games that's been installed from the beginning because I've been enjoying Final Fantasy XIV quite a lot, as you guys should be well aware by now. However, we were still running it on the PlayStation 4 client because PlayStation 5 has backwards compatibility and runs pretty much anything that the PlayStation 4 can run. Now, they're actually updating the client to take full advantage of PlayStation 5 hardware, and with that comes several improvements that we're going to be talking about in this video. However, it is important to mention that this is still an open beta client. This is not the final version of this client, so if you're experiencing some difficulties, which personally I didn't, the game just ran like I would have expected. There are a couple of things that I want to go into more detail, but if you do experience some difficulties, just remember you can always just go get the PS4 client again, run that, and then when eventually they release the final client for the PlayStation 5, you can do the upgrade again and you should be fine. As a matter of fact, I'm curious if any of you guys have experienced any issues whatsoever. Let me know in the comment section down below. Now, for those of you that have never played Final Fantasy XIV, if you guys are curious what the game is like, because I always hear people, hey, I haven't gotten into Final Fantasy XIV. Am I too late to the train? Like, what's the deal? Should I get invested? Should I buy the game? And here's the very easy thing. You don't have to buy the game. There's a free trial that is actually potentially the most generous free trial I've ever seen in an MMO, because you gain access to the base game as well as the first expansion, which is one of the favorite expansions of a lot of Final Fantasy XIV players, which is Heavensward. Like, just go read the critical reviews for Heavensward and you'll understand what I'm saying. And they give you access to all of that completely for free with no time limits, no limitations whatsoever. So basically, if you are curious about Final Fantasy XIV, there's never been a better time to jump in. There's an expansion like close to the end of this year, I think, around the holiday season or something like that. I don't know the exact date because they haven't put out an exact date, but there's a new expansion coming out this year, and if you start now, you should be about ready to go by the time the expansion launches, because there's still a lot of content to play through, and a big chunk of that content you can play completely for free if it's something that you are curious about. Now, throughout this video, I will eventually be showing some gameplay of some of the new content that is in patch 5.5, just giving you guys a heads up. I'm not going to show anything that gives you like story spoilers or anything like that, but I will show bits and pieces of the new dungeon. I'll show bits and pieces of the trial associated with the Sorrow of Warlit questline, and I will show bits and pieces of the new Nier raid. Again, no story cutscenes, no big spoilers or anything like that, but I do want to show off some of the new gameplay that is available in the game. But anyways, let's get started by talking about the visuals, because now that we have a client that actually takes advantage of PlayStation 5 hardware, has there been any improvement whatsoever? And I gotta tell you guys, in 2K resolution, the game runs friggin' fantastic. It runs better than it used to run on the PlayStation 4 client. There's a significant increase in performance, at least from my experience, having played in the PS4 client and now playing on the PlayStation 5 client. The performance is definitely better. And when I say 2K resolution, by the way, if you want to get technical, it's 2560 by 1440, so 1440p, whatever. At least I think that's the resolution that we're running in balanced mode. And that is my preferred way to play the game, because I tried going into 4K, which actually goes into native 4K on Final Fantasy XIV, whereas on the PS4 client you couldn't do that. You can now go into native 4K, however, it suffers a significant performance hit. So we're looking at maybe 30 FPS, and every now and then it dips. And initially I thought, oh, this could be because I'm sitting right in the middle of Limsa Lominsa. There's a lot of people in here, and, this could be causing a couple of hiccups on the visuals. But then I went to an empty area, and it didn't really change that much. So my only hope is that it is because it's still the open beta client. This is something that potentially they could still be working on and optimizing, because I do believe that the PlayStation 5 should be able to run this game at 4K 60. So I'm hoping that by the time they roll around the final client, 4K 60 is going to be a possibility. Either way, 2K still looks gorgeous and it runs at 60 FPS, which is what is more important to me. I always prefer FPS over resolution, so whenever they give me the option to play, with faster FPS or higher resolution, I'm always going to go for the faster FPS. So right now, balanced mode is what I would recommend to you guys. But visuals are not just like textures and whatnot on your character. We also have an improved UI. Now, one of the issues that I had with the UI previously is that whenever you would give yourself like a bar that was slightly bigger, like I have bars like that in order to track some of my cooldown, some of my OGCD abilities and stuff like that, those bars, because of the fact that they were bigger, you would stretch the icons to be a little bit bigger than their natural resolution in the game, and they would always look blurry and whatnot. Like, it's not jarring or anything like that, but it was something that you would notice. You'd be like, oh, these icons don't look that great. They've completely revamped the UI. I'm assuming they put higher resolution not models, but higher resolution icons on everything, because all of the icons look friggin' crystal clear now. And not just the icons themselves, but one thing that I noticed was the fonts. Whenever you load into a new area, the font that shows you like the title of that location, I never paid that much attention to it, but it's much crisper now, so I'm assuming they up-res that as well. So the UI all around has gotten a huge improvement in terms of just like resolution and how easy it is for you to actually read things and see the icons and all of that stuff, which is something that is very welcome indeed. Now, on top of that, obviously you have faster load times, because now they're actually taking full advantage of the Sony proprietary SSD technology that they're using with the PlayStation 5. And I say this because it's not just SSD. They did an explanation on one of their talks in GDC or whatever. So it's not just plain old SSD. They're doing something a little bit different with it. That's why I call it proprietary technology. But basically the loading times are really, really fast, which is very, very welcome. Another feature they added is support to the DualSense's rumble technology, which, for those of you that don't know, the PlayStation 5 controller essentially has HD rumble, and it's actually really good with it. And the attention to detail that they've done with Final Fantasy XIV, I thought was actually pretty impressive, to the point where if you're on a mount that's got like wings and you're flying around, you can feel the flapping of the wings of the mount in the controller. But on the other hand, if you're on a different mount, like something that's got maybe a jetpack like the Gabriel mounts from the Bosnian Southern Front, that is going to give you just like a light rumbling to simulate the jet of the mount. If you happen to fly down suddenly and you get that little wind sound effect, that also rumbles a little bit more. So it is very, very well done and very, very well implemented. Like, I was really impressed with that. Now, at this point, I'm going to be talking about the MSQ, and I'm going to be showing like dungeon footage and stuff like that. I probably already showed bits of dungeon footage here and there. But, I'm going to be showing some more of the other things. Just be aware, no story spoilers, nothing like that. Just some of the new gameplay that is available with the dungeon, the trial, and the raid. Okay? So, the first part of the main scenario quest for patch 5.5 was friggin' awesome. Okay, I didn't like the last bit of MSQ as much, because it felt very much like, stuff that is happening in between. This time around, though, it was really, really cool, and I think that pretty much anyone that enjoyed Heavensward, I think you guys are gonna love this particular main story quest. But personally, I can't wait for part 2, because this patch, as I'm told by Final Fantasy XIV veterans, because I know a lot of people that play the game, and as they tell me, okay, this patch is split in 2, so I'm very curious to see what happens in part 2 of this patch, because that is going to be what gives us the link into Endwalker, which is the expansion that I'm super excited to play, which is coming later this year, because finally my main class is the poster boy. The Paladin is basically representing the Warriors of Light in the Endwalker, and that is friggin' awesome. because, you know, Paladin is the class that I play the most. It is my favorite class in the game because he's got a shield. He's got the best animation in the whole damn game, which is Passage of Arms. You all know it. You all know it. It's just true. It's a fact. I'm sorry if you disagree with it. It is what it is. But yeah, I think that if you enjoyed Heaven's Word, I think you're going to like this particular main story quest. There's a lot of stuff from Heaven's Word that gets brought up into this patch, which was very, very, very nice to see. There's some Stormblood stuff as well that is kind of like coming back to get its payoff, I guess. Some stuff that was unresolved in Heaven's Word that's kind of like being brought back up as well. And they're just kind of like uniting all of these things to kind of come into a crescendo that I can't wait to see what actually is going to happen. So in terms of the dungeon itself, because we do get a new dungeon, I like this dungeon much more than I like the last one. I'm gonna be honest, what was it called? Matoya's Relic was really not a dungeon that I cared for. As a matter of fact, when I was queuing for the expert roulette in the previous patch, I would usually hope, oh man, can I please get the dungeon from, I think it was from 5.3 or whatever. Can I get that dungeon instead of the Matoya's Relic? I was just not a huge fan of the Relic. I did like the boss fights and whatnot, but like the way in which they connected that dungeon, I don't know, it was just not something that I enjoyed all that much. But the new dungeon, I really liked it, and it felt somewhat refreshing to see them play a little bit with the traditional formula that they do for dungeons. Because usually most dungeons are like, okay, you do 2 pulls and then there's a wall, and then you do 2 pulls and then there's a wall. And here you could see them kind of getting away from that a little bit, with some mobs kind of like jumping to fight in the middle of the fray, which was interesting. It's still not something that's going to blow your mind or anything, right? You know, in most situations, you're still just basically doing 2 pulls, destroying everything, and moving onwards, which is what tends to happen in a lot of Final Fantasy XIV dungeons. But it was nice to see them play with the formula just a little bit, because it keeps giving me hope that eventually they'll make these dungeons harder, because that's what I would like to see. I'd really like to see harder 4-man content, as opposed to just always being like, you know, extreme trials, savage raids, all of these things. I'd like to see some harder 4-man content, you know, in the vein of something like Mythic Plus and whatnot. And I know that a lot of people bring this up, but it's just something that I would like, because that is the type of content that I personally really like to do. But, you know, it is what it is. Now, when it comes to the Sorrow of Warlight, we got to see the ending of that particular quest line, and the cinematic that comes at the end of that quest line is friggin' awesome. Like, if you have Final Fantasy XIV and you haven't touched Sorrow of Warlight, like, really get to it, because it is very much worth it. The trial itself was also amazing. It took me quite a few tries to get right, because our healers just kept dying, because I did this on day 1 and the healers just kept dying over and over and over. But it's a pretty cool trial, and I really liked what they did with it. I mean, you know, I always end up liking the trials and the more, I would say, the more casual content of Final Fantasy XIV, because I don't really do any of the savage stuff, because I don't have time or whatever. I'm usually, as you guys know, you look at my channel, you just see like a bunch of Monster Hunter Rise content. Yeah, that's what I end up doing most of the time. So I don't have enough time to dedicate to like a Savage Static or whatever. I do want to. Don't get me wrong, I do want to, but time is one of those things that I can only split myself so many times. But the trial was pretty cool, and the cutscenes associated with Sorrow of Warlight were just like top notch. And I'm actually curious, for those of you guys that have already played it, let me know what you think about MSQ, the trial, and even the Nier raid. And finally, speaking of the Nier raid, I liked the 3rd Nier raid. I think it was very creative, particularly the one bit where there's that unique mechanic that they did. I thought that was really cool, because it's definitely a callback to Nier Automata, which was a game that I greatly enjoyed. One of the best games that came out that year, hands down. One of the best games ever made, as far as I'm concerned. Nier Automata, friggin' love it, and I recommend it to pretty much everyone, right? So, you know, having Nier in Final Fantasy XIV is something that I enjoyed, and I liked the 3rd Nier raid, which, interestingly, I'm calling it the 3rd Nier raid because supposedly it's not the last, according to what Yoshi P was saying, even though it definitely felt like kind of a final chapter to that particular arc. But apparently there's still going to be more Nier content, and right now there's a weekly quest that you can do. And I think that it's supposed to be divided into 3 bits, and I already did like the first part. I'm assuming that each of the bits is going to take you to one of the raids to do things, because the first part of the quest took me to one of the raids to go pick up some materials or something. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen when you complete those 3 quests, because maybe there are more Nier quests associated with all this. Who knows what is going to happen. But when it comes to the 3 Nier raids, I gotta say that at the end of the day, I still liked the other 2 Nier raids more than I liked the third one. Because the third one, it's the whole thing where you're inside the network and whatnot, and I was like, yeah, I get it, it's fun, but the levels just don't feel as rich. And sure, the boss fights are cool and all that, but again, to me, the Machine Factory and Puppet's Bunker were way cooler, with Puppet's Bunker to me being top tier. To me, out of the 3 raids that we got from Nier, Puppet's Bunker was definitely the coolest, followed by Machine Factory and this new one called Paradigm's Shift Tower. I forget what the name of the raid is. But you guys know, the latest Nier raid that we got, that one was actually the weaker one. Still very good. Like, don't get me wrong, don't be discouraged or anything like that. Still an excellent raid. But, you know, at the end of the day, it was going to be very hard for them to beat Puppet Bunker for me, just because of... there's some really neat stuff in there, even with trash, when you're doing like that trash in between the tank boss and the final boss. I thought that was really creative, and I really enjoyed that. So there was just some really cool stuff in that one. I also really liked the 3 ships boss. I thought that one was really cool, the way that they kind of troll you with some of those mechanics. But yeah, overall, a fantastic patch, and I'm super happy that we finally have what is the beginning of a PlayStation 5 client. But I really hope that they start working on the final version of that client to bring us maybe a better version of 4K. Even though, again, like I said, 2K looks gorgeous, looks beautiful. But I would also like to go 4K 60. I mean, why not, right? If you can go even higher, why wouldn't you? But ultimately, I would highly recommend you guys check it out. If you're someone that hasn't checked out Final Fantasy XIV, I would very much advise you to check out the trial for Final Fantasy XIV, because it's completely free. You got absolutely nothing to lose, and there's well over 200 hours of content there that you can just play completely for free. Just be aware that the beginning in Realm Reborn is a little bit rough, but it is all worth it when you eventually get to Heavensward. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.